introduce our guest speaker today. Just going to bump him up a little bit. So this is a person who has served this church for a long time. But not only this church, but our community. And in serving our community, not only Streatham, but a lot of Christian people would have benefited from his service to the Lord. And at this point, I want to welcome our wonderful Dave Locke. Just going to pray for you, Dave. So I once joked with him that I have an annex to Manor Bookshop because I bought all my Christian books from the Manor Bookshop. Very good. Let me just pray. Father, I want to thank you for this awesome man of God. He's a treasure to us. And give him confidence today to speak your word. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, I've been in this church over 40 years, and it's the first time I've been asked to speak. I've led services. I've been behind that screen for so many years, and it's nice to come out of that and actually see you and be at the front to speak to you.
Wonderful.
So, I want to tell you, God is faithful, and that is really true in my life. And when Paul sang, "What a faithful God have I," that was something that really touched my heart because it was a song that we did at my mum's funeral, and she was such a faithful woman of God. And it nearly brought a tear to my eye, just singing that because of the memories of how she brought us up as a family as well. So I want to tell you about my life because many of you probably haven't asked me about that in the past. But just to say how God is faithful and how he can do the same for you as well. So, from a childhood, I was brought up in a Christian home. Sorry, I'm going to have to wear the glasses because I've got lots of notes here, and I don't want to go off speed. Off Brixton Hill, my parents became Christians at a Billy Graham crusade in Haringey. Is there anyone here that's got converted at a Billy Graham crusade? No, okay.
No. Usually there's people.
I'm sure there is.
Sheila.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Look at that, long-standing.
I can't remember the year, but it was in the 50s, I think. And my dad got us to go to church. We went to All Saints Church in New Park Road. I joined the Cubs and Scouts and was involved in the Cubs and Scouts for many, many years. Lots of camping, which has totally put me off camping for the rest of my life. And my brother and sister, they joined the Boys and Girls Brigade at New Park Road Baptist. So, and they always had parades together, so it was really good. And it was a good grounding for Christian faith as well. But when we were young, my dad became blind with retinitis pigmentosa. And it followed his brother who had the same illness. So we all got tested for that in the future. But it never deterred him from becoming a minister for God. And he started up a fellowship along with one of the curates of St. Leonard's Church in Streatham, who was more into the healing ministry and the charismatic movement. So they started a fellowship together. And at a young age, he used to go to a Christian Bible camp in Derbyshire called Bonsall, and that was run by the Church Army. And that was a fantastic grounding for Christian faith. Hundreds and hundreds of kids enjoying sport and fun, but also having a celebration in an evening and hearing the Word of God. And also, lots of us found the Lord for the first time there. I went there for many years, and it was really great fun. And yet again, a great grounding in my Christian faith. When we were in our teenage years, we went with my dad and the fellowship to do evangelism in outer skirts of Reading and Oxford. And we used to go door-to-door knocking, which I think is very rare these days, where you knock on the door, you say who you are, where you're from, you give you a little bit of testimony, and invite them along to an evening celebration. And we used to do that in the local village hall in Reading. And, I mean, you don't really see that these days. I don't know why. You might see the Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door, but very rarely you see Christians. So that's something to think about. But those days were really good. And when we invited people back to the celebrations, a lot of them did come. We've received a lot of rejection as well. But many people found the Lord through that ministry and also got healed. And then I got baptised along with 70 other people. I think about 74 in the end. One evening in a village hall in 3 Mile Cross in Reading. And there, my baptismal verse, which has stayed with me and been a real blessing to me for all my life, is Isaiah 41, verse 10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And, that's been with me all my life. I constantly look at it, constantly remember it. I still haven't memorized it totally, funnily enough. But there we go. During my secondary school days at Tulse Hill School, there's another Tulse Hill Schoolite here, Sunil. We were at school together. I think we had some lessons together as well. They were some of my toughest times as a Christian. It was very hard being a Christian in a school that was renowned for its, bullies and everything else. And I used to run the tuck shop. And in those days, you would get these bullies come up to you and want free sweets. And because I stood up and I didn't give them, they used to wait for me to shut up shop later and meet me in the corridors and would be very abusive and beat me up or go in a lift and get me. And they were tough times, very difficult times, but the Lord was always with me. And the amazing thing, and this is really incredible, what God can do, is that when I started working at Manor, and I was there 36 years, in the early days, a couple of guys came along and I knew who they were. I remembered them from school. They were the bullies. They came into the shop. They'd just become Christians in prison, and they wanted help. They wanted advice on what book to be recommended and what Bible to have. And they asked me for forgiveness as well, because they remembered me too. And that was such an impactful moment of my life. And I'm really grateful that they've found the Lord and are serving the Lord elsewhere. So that was quite an impactful experience. Moving on. My first job was in insurance, insuring yachts and motorboats. Anyone here had a yacht and motorboat in their life? Cool. No, so I haven't insured you then. Okay. So I worked in a lovely town of East Grinstead, working for Lloyd's of London, but in an administration office, insuring yachts and motorboats. Great time. I was there 6.5 years, but in the last year we helped run off the company with one other person because we had a total loss of a marina in Sardinia where it just caught fire and all the yachts and motorboats were destroyed. And it didn't help us at all along with ours. But I do remember some of the people we used to insure yachts and motorboats for were Royal Naval officers. And one day, this guy rang up. "Earwacker Trimmings here. I want you to tell me when my insurance claim is going to be fixed." And things like that really impacted me over the years, where these guys were so forceful, and it helped me through my rest of my life. But whilst I was contemplating where I go next, I was offered a new job at the underwriters box in Lloyd's of London with a very good salary. But at the same time, Paul Goodliff, one of our former pastors here, rang me one day and said, "Can I meet up with you? We were wondering whether you consider going into full-time Christian work and becoming the manager of Manor Christian Centre in Streatham, which was started by the church here in 1981. The Lloyd's job was offering me 3 times the salary. And we were due to get married that year in May 1987, one of the hottest Mays ever. So a huge decision to make. The Lord led me to start at Manor. It was a big faith step, and one that took me through 36 years of my life with no regrets. My mum had always wanted me to become a minister, to follow in my dad's footsteps, but I went into full-time Christian work instead, which still pleased my mum. And like I said, the song we sang today was really apt. What a faithful God we have. So my life started here at Lewin over 40 years ago. I was immediately thrown into, which we didn't have a cage in those days, it was before redevelopment, drumming. I've been drumming ever since, yeah. I also joined the Lewin football team and cricket team, which was very successful over the years. I became the captain and then secretary for both for many years until it folded a few years ago, which was a shame. We all got too old, I think. I still remain today, after nearly 30 years, Assistant Secretary of the Bromley and Croydon Christian Football League. So the Lord's been faithful in all of this, even with sport as well, because there's been lots of people that have found the Lord through the ministry of sport. And we'll probably hear about more of that in the weeks and months to come with Bruce. But there's also been miracles in my life as well, apart from the bullies. We were told a few years into our marriage that it was going to be very difficult to have children. That brought a lot of heartache, but we continued to believe that God would give us a miracle, although there were times when we struggled with the belief of that. But there was a wonderful prayer warrior and servant of God in the church, and many of you remember her, Christella Tomoses. Fantastic woman of God. She spent a lot of time praying with Angela, my wife, through some very dark days, and they were very dark days. Angela at the time was working with a BBC correspondent who was a Christian in those days, Martin Bashir, who's obviously become famous for other things. She was nannying his children, and they even offered to pay for IVF. And we got to that point where we thought, yes, let's pursue that. But the day we went to the hospital to start the treatment, the consultant couldn't believe his eyes when he checked the scan that Angela was actually already pregnant, which was amazing. And dear Christella had prayed and prophesied just before that we were not only going to have a child, and the first to be a boy, the others would follow, and so our first miracle child, Thomas, was born in 1994, followed by Hannah 2 years later, and then Naomi in 2000. She's an easy one to remember, how old she is. She was born in 2000. And then an extra bonus 5 years later in Rachel. 4 beautiful miracles. Rachel was just about to start her second year at Lincoln University, which is, I can't believe, but there we go. So, lots of miracles, and really blessed Christella. She prayed with so many people over the years, and so many miracles and healings occurred. Bless her. I can't remember the year, but some of you might, who are here, remember, it was definitely pre-redevelopment, that Lewin had a prophecy conference here with Graham Cook from Southampton. There we go. It was just before redevelopment. And many of us were prophesied over, and I found mine the other day. I was doing some clearing up, looking for some photos. And one of the words for me were, many doors will be open for you throughout the coming years. Many lives will be touched through your ministry, through scriptures and Christian literature. And this has surely been true, 37 years in Christian bookselling. Another miracle, 20 years ago, probably slightly more now, we were going to be homeless. We'd been living in people's houses that they'd either gone abroad or had somewhere spare. We were going from rented house to rented house, and it got to a point where there was nowhere else. But another wonderful pastor here, former pastor here, Don Attenborough, there was a point where we were going to have to split as a family. Angela and the kids moved up to her mother-in-law's in Norfolk for the week. I would work at Manor in the week and then go up for weekends into Norwich. But this pastor, Don Attenborough, who many of you know, was up in a conference in London where a Christian Housing Association were present and doing a presentation about how they help full-time Christian workers in London get accommodation in 50-50 house shares, etc. Don had a conversation afterwards and explained to them about our situation. And to cut a long story short, found out that we were prime candidates for what they do. We were rescued due to a chance meeting of Don with Amersham Christian Housing, who are now called Mission Housing, having recently joined up with another association. And we had 3 houses so far with them, one in Streatham, one in Thornton Heath, and now in Selsdon in South Croydon in those over 20 years. And by God's grace, been able to keep the work of Manna going up until last year. And now in the last year, at Oasis Christian Bookshop in Wallington. God is so faithful and amazing. But at this point, I want to be honest with you. It's not been easy. It hasn't always been plain sailing. Marriage hasn't been easy in 37 years as well, with the highs and lows of all the things that have happened and gone on. And I acknowledge that there's been times of weakness and failure to live God's way all the time. And through God's grace, I've received restoration and forgiveness. And you can too, if you have similar tough times and need the Lord's guidance and help you. God answers prayers. And in weakness, He gives us and shows us strength. And let me encourage you to open up your life more to God, and He will bring you peace, love, strength, joy, comfort, and all those things that Felicia said this morning. And He'll help you through. God's faithfulness shines through. Always trust in God, believe in God, and don't lose that God focus. And I want to read to you 1 Samuel 12:24. But be sure to fear the Lord and serve Him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things He has done for you. I want to now show you a few slides, and I've got to get the remote out and turn it on. Just a few things of... a few weeks ago, I spoke at Wallington Baptist Church to share the work of Oasis Christian Bookshop. And if I can turn this on. Yeah. And I've got some slides here that I showed to them, showed them what the work was involved in. And I thought, you haven't really heard about Oasis Christian Bookshop apart from knowing that I've now transferred over to there. So it'd be good to just show you a few slides of what the Lord is doing. So yeah, Oasis Christian Bookshop's been going 40 years, a bit similar to Manna. Manna did 43 years. And I've got my notes here, sorry. It's been going 40 years. It has a great team of volunteers, trustees and management. Two of them have left since I joined, mainly because they wanted to see me start and get welded in, so to speak. And unfortunately, we had two trustees that passed away in the last 12 months. Paul, one of the original managers of the bookshop, got ill back in November, and when he eventually went into hospital, he was so stubborn he wouldn't go. And then when he did go, he caught an infection and unfortunately passed away. And he'd been involved in the shop most of his years. And then another trustee, I was getting a bit of a complex at this point, was playing badminton one day and just fell dead on the court. And it was such a shock, obviously, to everyone. So we always need prayer. We need more trustees as well. But we're hoping to have a new website coming soon, new shop signs to come, because the shop signs, one of the things I said in my interview back early last year was, they asked me what I would do in the first 6 months, and I said, well, first of all, we'll change the shop signs because they look so shabby in the high street. And the day before I started, it was a bank holiday in May, the lower sign, which is the black bit, fell. Absolutely fell. Didn't hit anyone, unfortunately, but it collapsed. And I thought that was a good sign. But trying to get a sign company to do it has been really difficult. They don't seem to be interested in Christian bookshops, I don't think. But we eventually found a guy that's in West Norwood who apparently, amazingly, he's a Christian, and he put Manna's first sign up back in 1981, which is incredible. So we're liaising with him at the moment to get that done. Here we go. Oh, that didn't work. Yeah, so when I started, that was a team of volunteers that I had on the left-hand side. And then two of the trustees, I think they were debating whether they made the right decision in employing me. That's the shop inside, nice, bright, new shop. They changed it during COVID and made it much brighter. We have, obviously, a great lot of Christian resources available. It's a gift and card section at the back. It's a long and narrow shop, but it's just a similar size to what Manna was, even though Manna was two shops. We've had book signings because it's our 40th year. So Claire Muster's on the left. Is it your left? Yes. She's written loads of Christian books, and she works for Woman Alive magazine and lots of stuff for Premier. She's a local author. And then David on the right is a local guy from here who shares in his book his life in Spurgeon's childcare on the Kent coast. It's a very good story. And next, I continue to do lots of different resource stalls at William Booth College and Spurgeon's College. And also there's an Ecclesia Leadership Conference that I've managed to get to do each year as well. And so we're getting the books out there. That's Spurgeon always looking over the bookshops that I do there and making sure I behave myself. And then we do a men's event in September, which there is one coming up for all you men on the 15th of September, where it's just literally designed for men, sports, fun, and then a speaker in the evening. Last year we had Gavin Peacock, the former Premiership footballer and Chelsea player and Newcastle player. The response to him was fantastic. And we did actually sell a lot of his books as well, which is also good. And then some books that have sold really well this year, some of you may be in the dark on. There's the Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. That's selling very well. And then a book that Patrick Reagan wrote during COVID, or because of COVID, Brighter Days, helping you with your well-being. All good sellers at the moment. And then Tom Wright continues to write, Jesus and the Powers. And then we've got The Last Laugh by Steve Legg. Now, Steve Legg is a Christian entertainer, magician, and all that sort of stuff, and writes the Sorted magazine for men. But he's been suffering the last few years with cancer. He nearly got through it all, and then is still struggling with it at the moment. So we want to pray for Steve Legg and his family. He's got 5 daughters, and pray that they will cope with what's going on in his life at the moment. But that's a really good, that's his story up until about a year ago. And then we've got lots of children's resources. We've got this book called Heroes, which is 2 big books that J. John has written, another evangelist, on many famous people. That's sold well. And then the NIV Bible still remains the top-selling Bible. We have a whole section for that. And the Life Application Bible, which has just been redone this year, has sold very, very well. And it's a really good resource if you're wanting a study Bible. So we want you to obviously support your local shop, which unfortunately had to close last year, Manor Christian Centre. But fortunately, majority of the customers from Manor have actually come over to Wallington, which has really helped us keep going. And with half their overheads, we've managed to almost double the turnover there in the last year. But I want you to remember, rather than click online, to support all good reasons to choose Christian bookshops. You love books, and so does your Christian bookseller. Your local Christian bookseller has a range of Bibles, books, and a whole lot more. You can open the book, you can't online, to a world of discovery. You'll find great customer service and be amongst friends. You can browse properly. You'll be helping to maintain a Christian presence in the high street. You'll be supporting your local community and economy. You'll find a listening ear, which is very important, and an encouraging word where needed. Your Christian bookseller can help you find the perfect gift. Your Christian bookseller will always be pleased to see you and have time for you. We pay our taxes, which is quite crucial. Thank you for listening. I've just got a few questions to ask. Oh, did I go through all the slides? Oh, now that's Manor, an old picture of Manor, and also the Lewin football team. Now, Gary Withers, who used to be a member here, is part of that team there. We won the cup that day, and Chris Giles was there at the back. You probably can't see because it's quite small, but it was a very successful team. The sports ministry here at the church was really going well, and it may, you never know, in the future, come back because of who we may have as our leader. So I've just got a few questions here to make sure you're awake. And then I've got a whole series of books here and CDs that if you answer the question, you can come and choose one. But last week, Marie Jones mentioned Basic Christianity by John Stott was the book that influenced her throughout her life. And I'm willing to give you to this to anyone else that really feels that they need to know more of the character of Christ, of being a Christian and living the Christian life. So that's available as well if you want to give it, or if you've got someone you know that wants to, would value having that book. But the questions, I've got all mixed up here now, sorry. So, hands up. Can you remember where I was born? Who said that? Yeah, well done. You can come and choose. Well, I wasn't actually born in Brixton Hill. Apparently I was born in a bucket in Kingswood Road, off New Park Road. But anyway, what was the name of the Christian camp I attended when I was younger? Or where was it in the country? Derbyshire, who said that? Yeah, well done. So some of you are listening. You've got some puzzled faces. What was my baptismal verse? Isaiah 41? Yes. Oh, it's not all bad. What was my occupation before going into Christian bookselling? What type of insurance? Sunil, you can choose. And what was the name of the pastor that helped us with our housing? Don Attenborough. Vanessa. Well done, you're listening. And how many years have I been in Christian bookselling? Thank you. Yep, well done. Two of you, both of you go. Yeah. And thank you for listening. And if you're able to, in the future, to come over to Wallington, lots of people have done, it's not far, and see what Christian resources are available. We will thoroughly welcome you. If there's any way you can help us in other ways, if you can't come over to us and you can support us as a shop to help us with our rent and also with getting new signs and things like that, new computers and stuff like that, then see me afterwards. And also, if you want to help us personally as a family, it has been a struggle being on a low Christian salary for all these years, but the Lord has been so faithful and kept us going. And just remember to pray for us. Thank you.